Hey, what's going on, guys? My name is Brandon. Welcome to Audio Addiction, where you find latest album reviews. You can find our band interviews, and you can find live coverage of the concerts that we get. If you are going to be watching this, I will be at the Union Transfer show tonight, so definitely come hang out. It's going to be a great show. Super excited for that. Also, if you are watching this pre the show, I will be interviewing CNVAR, so if you have questions, I might be able to slip one or two in from the comment section below. So if you have any comment below, I'll also be going to the Chon show the next day on Thursday, so definitely come hang out for that one as well. Super stoked for that lineup too. I think it's so good too, which I'm really excited about. Also, a ton of album reviews, interviews to be coming out in the next couple days, so definitely be keeping an eye out for all of that. But tonight we're going to be talking about Dance Gavin Dance's new record, Artificial Selection. So I've been a fan of this band for a hot minute now, ever since the Downtown Mountain Battle 1 days with Johnny Craig, and then I kind of followed them along with Happiness, and then the self-titled, as well as some of the Tillian stuff. I wasn't like super into it until Mothership came out, and then I've been following them back again ever since, a little bit more in depth. But I'm gonna go through each track off this new record, give you my thoughts and opinions on it, and go through some pros and cons on the entire record, and then finish it out with an overall rating. So the first track is Son of Robot. This is the second single that they released, and I'm digging this sort of dreamy ambient intro. I think the little bit of flute also adds a little bit of contrast to the guitars, and a little bit of a textural layer, which I think is really awesome. John brings in all of the energy in this track, and just more of the DGD you know and love. Tillian also brings more of the melodic elements of this track. I think that some of the vocal melodies in this track are really awesome. More specifically in the chorus, I feel like that is definitely the focal point of this entire track. The melodies are super infectious, and they really transcend the entire track. Definitely probably one of my favorites out of the singles, without a doubt. Maybe Care would be a close second, but definitely Son of Robot is really killer. So we're gonna move into track number 2, which is Midnight Crusade. This is the first single that they released, and if you haven't watched the music video, it's hilarious. I love it. I love that they do those sorts of like gaggy, funny music videos. It just shows that they're, you know, light and having a good time. But getting back to the track, I love the intro. I think the guitars with just solo Tillian vocals, I think, are really awesome. Then John kicks off the verses with this cool sort of pop, like almost punk beat to it. No, very much a punk beat, which is a little bit different for them. But I feel like the song definitely peaks in the choruses. I definitely feel like the choruses are absolutely the strong points in a lot of these tracks. But overall, I feel like listening to this track for as many times as I had prior to getting the record, I felt like this one has become more bland over time. I think that the melodies are definitely those just ones that you just infectiously know about, but just the instrumentals feel a little bit like lacking, and that's kind of hard for me to say, because I feel like, you know, Dance Gavin Dance has some really inventive stuff, which is kind of a disappointment a little bit, but otherwise I think this track has some great hooks to it, but it's just missing that sort of essence. But I love the bridge. I think that was also another really key point in this track, but overall I think it's just missing that little bit of punch to it that I was expecting. It just lacks that sort of pull to it. But we're gonna move into track number 3, which is Suspended in This Disaster, and this one is great. I love the groove to it. It definitely harkens back to older DGD records, which is always a plus. Tillian has a very strong vocal performance in this track, because most of the song is primarily him. I'd say it's probably 80 Tillian, 20 John. I feel like his screams are a little bit in the backseat in terms of this song, and I also love that the bass is very prevalent in this track. I feel like it carries a lot of the groove along with the drums, of course, but I feel like the bass, they never really get too much love, and I feel like in this track it is definitely one of those important things that goes on in this track. Definitely kind of on that borderline of favorites. I feel like I have to listen to it maybe a little bit more to kind of give you an idea, but I would say it's pretty close to the favorites. Solid track overall. I really don't have any complaints on this one. So we're gonna move into track number 4, which is Care. This is the 3rd single that they had released, and I'd probably say that this has the most poppiest elements to it, in terms of just vocal melodies and the way that Tillian kind of commands this track. He really takes the helm, and I feel like John really does take a backseat. In the past 2 tracks, I feel like he really just is unutilized, and I mean, obviously there's tracks further along in this record where he gets more, limelight, but in these 2 songs, he definitely is a little bit more in that backseat portion. This is definitely one of the more melodic, if not the most melodic track off the record. But I'm digging Tillian's range. I like how, as much as a lot of people like that sort of counterbalance between the 2, which I also dig as well, I think that it's cool to have those songs where it just primarily, either Tillian or primarily John. I think that it really makes for just vocal experimentation, as well as just a little bit of a diversity, because obviously they play off of each other very well. It's cool to have those moments where it's a little bit more Tillian mode. I also like that Zach helped out in some of the writing. I think more or less in the bridge, I think he did some guest guitar work. Somebody can clarify that, but I know that they had posted it on Strawberry Girls' page, which is really cool. And I like that, again, he used to be a member of DGD, and he's kind of giving his own opinions and doing his own thing on this track. I think it really works, and it definitely gives me those nostalgic vibes that harken back to previous DGD records. Much like some of the previous songs that I had talked about, it has some really great hooks as well, and I love that sort of salsa vibe in the bridge. I feel like is absolutely the focal point of this track, and it has that DGD flair that I've been missing, and I really loved. John, again, seems pretty irrelevant in this track, and I don't think he is necessarily needed in this track at all. I think the screaming in this song was just a little bit too over the top. I feel like this one is definitely more of just the Tillian song, and I would have minded if it was just strictly him. I just feel like maybe he could have done some clean vocals. Who knows? It would have maybe worked out a little bit better. But I felt like the screaming was just a little bit jarring in comparison to just the more softer, poppier sensibility of this track. We're going to move into track number 5, which is Count Bassy. This is the first of the 4th single and the most recent single. They actually released a music video, I think it was Monday, which is, I haven't checked it out yet, but I think it's cool based off of the sort of clips that I saw on Instagram. But this one shows off more of their slower side as well, much like in Care. I feel like it has a little bit more of those slower vibes to it, and I like that the bass is, has more of a presence in this track, and it definitely feels just more closer in terms of just the sonic arrangement. It feels a little bit more pulled out, again, which I really love. I feel like a lot of the rhythm lines transcend from the bass and the drums, so I feel like they really kind of connected the dots on that one. But I feel like the song didn't grab me overall. I feel like 2/3 of this song was pretty boring, pretty bland, and wasn't one that I was necessarily into until around the 2 minutes and 50-second mark. I feel like that part is absolutely sick. It has this awesome groove and bounce to it, and the crew, they kind of rounded off with this interesting vocal group vocal part, I can speak English, at the end of this track. I think it really kind of culminates the song in a really nice way. I just feel like the initial part of the song really just didn't grab me, and I feel like the latter half of the song is definitely much better. So we're gonna move into track number 6, which is Flash. Digging this sort of upbeat, fun vibes of this track. It shows off, you know, they're more fun, let go sort of sensibility, and you can hear it in the just instrumentation, the vocals, you know, John's vocals as well. Instrumentally speaking as well, it's great. I love the writing in this one. There's some really cool melodic passages created by Will, but also some really aggressive, more punchy nature in the choruses, which is really cool. I also feel like Tillian's grit kind of plays a nice role in this track. I've always loved his voice and the way that he's able to just have that gritty tone, but really kind of smooth it out in certain parts as well. I think it's a really well-rounded, well-structured track. The harmonies in the last chorus were primo. I really enjoyed it. But overall, there wasn't anything that particularly stuck out, but it wasn't anything that I felt negative about this song. Much like in Suspended in Disaster, I feel like it's right on the cusp of favorites, but I have to maybe give it a few more listens. So we're going to move into track number 7, which is The Rattler. This one will surprise most, if not all, DGD fans. It came out of left field for me, and it feels almost like a secret band song with Tillian doing some vocals in the chorus and in the bridge part. If you haven't checked out Secret Band, it's pretty much DGD excluding clean vocalists, and it's more heavy, more aggressive, more dissonant. Definitely one of the heaviest tracks off the record, and it will definitely be the black sheep of the record. Cool grooves, and I love the bridge. I feel like just the juxtaposition of the just intensity of the verses, choruses, things of that nature against the bridge. I feel like it is just a nice comparison, a little off tension, which is really nice. The dissonance in this song is really nice, and I really feel like it gives John a chance to shine in this record. Like I had mentioned with Care, you know, I felt like his screaming wasn't necessary, but I feel like in the Rattler he just kind of just went ham on this track, and I appreciate that immensely. I think John's screaming is really unique, and if it's really kind of polarizing. You either like it, you don't like it. I feel like there aren't people that are in the middle, so I really enjoy it. I think he's got a uniqueness to it, and I think this one is definitely one of my favorites off the record. It's just one of those jarring tracks that, you know, as an older DGD fan, you won't expect. So for me, I really enjoyed this one. So we're gonna move into track number 8, which is Shelf Life, and this one features Kurt Travis of Royal Coda, X A Lot Like Birds, and to name many more probably. But I really like that he was brought back into this track, and as soon as Kurt started singing, that nostalgia, those nostalgia glasses came right on. You know, I was back into those Happiness days, which is one of my favorite DGD records. And I like that this one shows off a bit more of that softer melodic side. And Kurt's parts were phenomenal. I feel like, you know, a lot of people were griping about it. I think he fit very well into this track and definitely gave me those nostalgic vibes, but also really just kind of bringing that song together. His vocal passages start from 12 seconds to around the 1 minute and 2 second mark, the 1 minute and 30 second mark to around the 1 minute and 55 second mark, and then lastly the 2 minutes and 13 second mark to around the 2 minutes and 40 second mark. He has quite a few different lines throughout this song, which I appreciate. They got a lot of usage out of him. Also, the fact that he used to be in DGD as well, I feel like plays a big role in why he was largely in this track. Tillian was really good in this track, but I feel like there was a missed opportunity where they could have just harmonized really well, especially after the 1 minute and 30 second mark to around the 1 minute and 50 second mark. I feel like there could have been this cool kind of, you know, harmonization crossover part that would have worked out beautifully. He did do a big portion of this song, so I really have nothing to gripe about in that regard, but I would have loved to kind of have that moment with those two. Much like in Care, I feel like this one doesn't need screaming either. I feel like John could have taken a step back. They could have utilized him maybe in a different way with cleans, harmonization, a 3-part harmony, like that probably could have been possible. I don't know. I would have loved to hear that. I think that would have been cool. But I like that this one focuses more on that musical landscape as opposed to just going wild and just having a track that just is a little bit more jarring, especially after the Rattler. I feel like this one is a nice follow-up to that track, but also having that sort of unique vibe to it. So we're gonna move into track number 9, which is Slouch. I'm loving that gritty, gnarly bass tone. I think it's really cool. Definitely makes this track groove and get going. I think that this one has a lot of great bass lines in it. And I think just the record in general has some awesome bass lines that I feel like a lot of people haven't pointed out in previous or reviews that to come out. Just the bass is absolutely more prevalent than I felt like in previous records, which is always a plus. The verses definitely feel much better than the choruses. They just lack that bit of pizzazz in my opinion. However, I think the ending of this track was really sick. I think that this one, much like some of the other ones that I'm on the fence about, I feel like this one is a little bit closer to the favorites. Again, maybe I have to give it some more listens, but overall really enjoyed this track as well. So we're gonna move into track number 10, which is Story of My Bros. This one took me by surprise as well. It has that sort of pop punk feel to it, and it almost feels a little bit satirical. It's really actually pretty much satirical. I think otherwise it is really catchy. I know a lot of people didn't like this one, but I thought it was really good. I thought it was catchy. The vocal layering is really phenomenal on this track. I love just the way that they did Tillian's vocals on this one. I think it really brings out a lot of character to his voice and a lot of character to the track in general. It's a high energy, fun track and a sick bridge overall that I felt like really fit along with this track. I feel like this one would be much better to see live. I can definitely feel like this would get the crowd going for sure. Even if you didn't like it, I feel like this one just has that sort of upbeat, fun vibe to it. And I feel like this one has some really great elements that are brought together. John and Tillian's vocals really complement each other very well on this track as well. And just overall, I think it's a solid track. It's not one of my favorites, but I think that it's kind of in that like middle gray area that I think it's a good track, but it's not to the point where it's one of my favorites. So we're gonna move into track number 11, which is Hair Song. This one has some really great guitar work, probably some of my favorite off the record. It has that sort of older DGD vibe, and I know I keep referencing it, but I love and appreciate the older stuff, and I like that despite Will be doing this for forever pretty much, he's able to come up with some really unique riffs that also play into the older sort of stuff, but also have that sort of new school vibe to it as well. I like that this one blends more of the melodic elements with the sort of heavier, punchy parts that John has in the best way. I think this one is an underrated favorite of mine. I know that most people would consider this to be another generic DGD track that has elements of older stuff, but I think maybe it's just the nostalgia speaking a little bit, but I really enjoyed this one a lot. I think it is a banger. So we're gonna move into track number 12, which is Gospel Burnout. The melodies in this track were freaking phenomenal, so memorable, and I love that Tillian is just able to kind of weave in and out of this track in just a fantastic way. The guitar and bass work is really great in this track as well. I feel like they definitely have those sort of standout moments in this song as well. Despite it being slower, I think it still grooves with all the prowess. I think it is a really phenomenal track. I also like that John experimented with his screaming. He has this sort of unique tonality in this one, and I thought that in much of the other tracks he really wasn't able to do much experimentation, maybe excluding the Rattler. I feel like he really went ham on that one, but This one, he really, did something unique, and I loved it. I felt like it worked very well on this track, and it didn't feel like it was just an external piece that they kind of just felt like adding in. It had its place, and in its moments. So also the flute makes a return as well, subtly, but I think it really works with this one. Really jiving with this one a lot, and is absolutely one of my favorites off the record. Alright guys, so we're getting into the home stretch of this record, the 13th track off this record, Bloodsucker. This one is probably one of the most inventive tracks that I think Will has come up with in his degree of Dance Gavin Dance. I know that is a divisive thing to say, but I feel like his guitar work in this track is definitely up there in that echelon of Will Swan favorites of mine. It definitely is absolutely killer. Just the guitar work is something that was just polarizing and really grabbed me in this track. The cool time signatures in the verses, I think it really made it work. Digging the overall sort of dark undertones of this track, I think it works both well with Tillian's vocals along with John's. I think it just works well in their favor, and I wouldn't mind if they continued down this path of including that sort of darker elements into their songs. Obviously I consider them to have that sort of happy vibes to them, no pun intended, but at the same time I would have loved for them to experiment in that way. At times it also reminds me a lot of Tillian's older band Tides of Man, especially in the bridge. It has that sort of dream house sort of vibe to it, maybe not exactly the same, but to me it struck me as those sort of dream house era music. Incredibly well structured, and is easily one of my favorite tracks off this record. I think it is one of the best tracks period, as well. Just from vocals to instrumentation, I think everything just works very well and in tandem with each other, and I think that this one, phenomenal track. So we're going to move into the track number 14, the last track off the record, Evaporate, and this one features Andrew Wells of Idola, a great band if you haven't checked out Idola yet either. But getting back to this song, cool intro. I love that it contains elements of the Rattler, maybe not as aggressive, but definitely has that sort of vibe to it, and I like that it kind of gets a little bit softer after the intro. It really took me by surprise, and I felt like it really worked with just the instrumentation overall. I also think that it has really great elements of heaviness, but also some awesome melodic moments as well. And Andrew's parts from 1 minute and 18 seconds to around the 2 minutes and 2 second mark, and then as well as the 2 minutes and 44 second mark to the 3 minutes and 2 second mark. I think that his vocals fit very well on this track. I'm a big fan of Andrew's vocals. I think he is one of the most underrated vocalists in the scene, so it's good to hear him on a DGD track. I think he fit very well. His vocal melodies really fit the sort of cadence of the song, and I feel like, again, I would have loved a harmonization moment, but I like that Andrew got his time. It was really cool. His melodies were absolutely on point in this track, and another really kind of tidbit or note that I felt like was interesting was the lyrical callback. There's a few other bands that have done it. Enter Shikari, Emarosa, probably missing a few other ones, but just do that sort of like lyrical callback, and I love that. Some songs that they used at the sort of end of Evaporate were Me and the Zoloft get along just fine. Surprise, I'm from Cuba. I don't know the rest of the title name because I didn't write it down. And I told them I invented Time to Romance, Acceptance Speech, Tree Village, We Own the Night, Backwards Pumpkin Song, Alex English, and maybe a few more that I forgot, but I'm pretty sure those were all of them. And it's just cool. I think that, just again, as an older fan, I love that they do those sort of, like lyrical nuggets, and I think that it really worked well in this track, and it ended off in a fantastic way to kind of solidify DGT as a force in the music industry, if you haven't already heard of them already, because you wouldn't be watching this review if you haven't heard of them before, right? But anyway, great closer track. I feel like it ends with a bang. undoubtedly. So some pros and cons. I like that they experimented some tracks like the Rattler, Story for My Boys. I feel like, you know, as well as those tracks, 2 tracks being very polarizing, I think they experimented very well with those. Another few other ones, Bloodsucker, and then Gospel, Burnout, I couldn't see it, but those 2 definitely as well experimented, but I feel like they experimented more along in their sort of styling. So appreciate that immensely. Great features as well. Kurt and Andrew respectively, I think, played very big roles in their tracks, and I loved their guest features as well. I think they worked well. Solid songwriting and groove, and I think there's a great variety of pop, post-hardcore to, like, you know, poppy vibes. Maybe not like top 40s radio pop, but just has that sort of pop essence to it. I couldn't think of the word, which is really cool, and I like that they incorporate that in as well. You know, I feel like he does that a lot in his solo project, Tillian's solo project, so I like that they kind of brought those 2 worlds together. But this is not without any cons. I feel like some songs were a little bit bland at some points. They just didn't really encapsulate that sort of DGD vibe that I know. They do have some great grooves, I'm not denying that, but I feel like there were some songs that caught me versus other ones. Tracks being like Count Basie and Midnight Crusade, they weren't bad tracks, they just were tracks that didn't vibe with me initially, but could vibe with me later, so I appreciate that. And some songs felt a little bit recycled in some senses, you know, like I said, they had that sort of nostalgic to them, maybe a little bit too much, but overall I feel like they didn't pull directly from another track. They just had that sort of reminiscent quality to them. But overall, really enjoyed this record. I don't think it's their best work to date, but I think it is a solid effort from them nonetheless, and I think that, you know, as long as they keep doing it and keep experimenting, I think that it works out very well. So my overall rating for Dance Gavin Dance's artificial selection, I'm going to be giving it a 9.3 out of 10. I think it is a solid record, like I said, but I don't think it's their best work personally. But let me know in the comments what you think about the record. Do you agree with me? Do you disagree? I'd love to know. I'd love to have a conversation about it, so let me know in the comments below. Thank you so much for watching this review. If you enjoyed it, please subscribe, hit that thumbs up, and hit that notification bell so you get notified of when new things come out. Got a ton of new stuff on the way, so be on the lookout for all of that in the coming weeks, etc. So my name is Brandon. We hope you got your fix, and we'll be talking with you soon. Peace. Hey guys, hope you enjoyed the video. Thanks for watching. Of course, if you enjoy what we do, make sure to go check out the other series we do. We do album reviews, we do band interviews, and we do live videos, so definitely go check that out. Hit that subscribe button. It really helps our channel, helps us grow. Make sure to hit that like button as well. Go follow us on social media. That's all down below. We try to keep that as updated as possible. We also made a new website where we'll be posting photos of upcoming concerts and stuff like that, which you can go check out at audioaddictionmedia.com, and come get your fix with us, guys. Talk to you later. Deuces.